Everyone knows Genghis Khan conquered half the world. That part is not the argument. By the time he died in 1227, Genghis Khan had built the largest contiguous empire in human history. He unified dozens of warring Mongol tribes into a single unstoppable force. He destroyed kingdoms that had existed for centuries. He created trade routes that connected east and west for the first time. He reshaped the entire map of the known world in a single lifetime. The history books call him a conqueror, and they are not wrong. But this video is not asking whether Genghis Khan was powerful. It is asking something far more precise. Was Genghis Khan actually ready to build the world's largest empire? Because power and readiness are not the same thing. Brutality and readiness are not the same thing. Even conquest and readiness are not the same thing. A leader can seize more territory than any human being in history while still carrying profound gaps in the readiness that genuine empire building actually demands. And Genghis Khan did exactly that in ways history rarely stops long enough to examine honestly. Today, we are going to use the Rewind History Assessment to evaluate Genghis Khan across 7 variables: context, value, informational assessment, efficacy, commitment, effort, and overall. This scorecard does not ask what Genghis Khan took. It asks whether he was genuinely ready for what building an empire actually required, not just militarily, not just strategically, but institutionally, culturally, and in terms of what he left behind. And before we go further, there is one idea that sits underneath everything you are about to hear. Most historians treat the violence and destruction of the Mongol conquests as simply the method of the era. But the readiness for change model asks a different question. Was the destruction a strategy, or was some of it a symptom? A symptom of a leader operating at the absolute outer edge of his readiness, capable of taking everything, and in certain critical areas not fully prepared to build what taking everything actually required. Because a leader can build the largest empire the world has ever seen and still leave it without the foundation it needed to last. Genghis Khan proved both of those things at the same time. Variable 1, context. The first variable on the Rewind History Assessment is context. Context asks one question: did the leader genuinely understand the environment he was operating in? And here Genghis Khan earns real credit, significant real credit. He was born Temujin into one of the most brutal and fragmented environments imaginable. The Mongolian steppe in the 12th century was not a civilization. It was a collection of constantly warring tribes with no central authority, no shared law, and no concept of unified identity. Betrayal was not an exception. It was the operating norm. His father was poisoned by rivals when Temujin was 9. His family was abandoned by their own clan. He was enslaved as a young man. He survived capture, betrayal, and isolation in conditions that ended most men before they reached adulthood. That environment did not break him. It educated him in a way no formal institution could have. Temujin understood the steppe context completely. He understood tribal loyalty, personal honor, the psychology of fear, the economics of raiding, and the precise social structures that held Mongol society together and tore it apart. He understood what people on the steppe valued, feared, and would die for. That was genuine contextual adaptation. It was also incomplete, because the systems he built were held together by personal authority and military fear more than by genuine institutional infrastructure. The context of the steppe, mastered completely. The context of empire governance, partially understood, never fully ready. Context score, B variable 2, value. The second variable is value. Value asks whether the leader produced something genuinely worth measuring. And on this variable, the historical record pulls sharply in 2 directions simultaneously. He created a meritocratic military system that promoted based on ability rather than birth. He established religious tolerance across his empire at a time when most rulers imposed their own beliefs by force. He developed a postal relay system that connected his vast territories with a sophistication that impressed even his enemies. That value was genuine. That contribution to history was real. But the destruction that accompanied the conquest represented one of the largest losses of human value in recorded history. The value created and the value destroyed exist in the same historical record. And a readiness assessment cannot look at one without the other. A fully ready leader builds more than he destroys. Genghis Khan's ratio on that question remains one of the most contested in all of historical analysis. Value score, C, variable 3, informational assessment. The third variable is informational assessment, and this is where the scorecard reveals something that most histories of Genghis Khan either miss or minimize. He built one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks the ancient world had ever seen. Before invading any territory, Mongol scouts and spies would spend months gathering detailed information about the target. Political divisions, military strengths, key personalities, supply routes, internal conflicts that could be exploited. Genghis Khan made decisions based on real information, not assumption. And that intelligence discipline was a primary reason his military campaigns succeeded at the rate they did. He also genuinely listened to advisors from conquered peoples. He kept Yelu Chukai, a Chinese Confucian administrator, as a close counselor and genuinely incorporated his advice about the value of taxation over destruction. He had the intelligence system. He had capable advisors. He had the historical examples of other empires that had fragmented after their founders died. The information was available. The full readiness to act on it at the deepest institutional level was not. Informational assessment score. B. Variable 4, efficacy. The fourth variable is efficacy. Efficacy asks the question that cuts through everything else. Did the leadership actually produce the intended outcome? And like the value variable, the answer here splits along a fault line that runs through the entire Mongol legacy. On the military side, the efficacy was historic. Genghis Khan intended to unify the Mongol tribes. He unified them. He intended to conquer the Jin dynasty in northern China. He broke it. He intended to punish the Khwarezmian Empire for executing his trade delegation. The Mongol Empire began fragmenting almost immediately after his death in 1227. Within 2 generations, it had divided into 4 separate khanates that spent significant energy competing with each other. An empire that fractures within 2 generations of its founder's death did not fully achieve the outcome that empire building requires. Genghis Khan produced the largest empire in history. He did not produce the most durable one, and that gap is precisely what the readiness assessment is designed to measure. Efficacy score. C. Variable 5, commitment. The 5th variable is commitment. And on this variable, the historical record is almost beyond dispute. Genghis Khan's commitment to his vision was total. It was forged in conditions that would have broken the commitment of almost any other human being. Enslaved as a child, abandoned by allies, betrayed by people he trusted, he rebuilt his position from nothing multiple times before he ever unified a single tribe under his authority. That kind of commitment is not developed in comfort. It is forged in repeated loss. And by the time Temujin became Genghis Khan, his commitment was not the enthusiasm of someone who had never been tested. It was the unbreakable resolve of someone who had survived everything the world had thrown at him and kept moving forward anyway. He committed to his generals with genuine loyalty, rewarding ability regardless of tribal origin. He committed to his legal code, applying the yasa to himself and his own family as well as to his subjects. Commitment that cannot accommodate honest challenge eventually becomes a closed system. And a closed system cannot receive the feedback it needs to grow into genuine readiness. Genghis Khan's commitment to his own judgment, while generally sound on military matters, occasionally blocked the kind of institutional thinking that empire continuity required. The commitment was extraordinary. The question was always what the commitment was fully committed to. Commitment score. A. Variable 6. Effort. The sixth variable is effort, and here the scorecard has almost nothing to qualify. Genghis Khan's effort across his lifetime represents one of the most sustained and disciplined demonstrations of personal drive in recorded history. He did not inherit an empire, he built one from nothing. From a position of genuine powerlessness, genuine poverty, and genuine isolation, he constructed the largest land empire the world has ever seen through decades of relentless effort. Military campaigns that lasted years, diplomatic efforts that required understanding dozens of different cultural contexts, administrative work that required building governance systems from the ground up across territories of incomprehensible scale. He trained his warriors with a discipline that transformed the Mongol military into something qualitatively different from anything the ancient world had faced before. If this scorecard has one variable where Genghis Khan's readiness was most complete, it is here. The effort was real, the effort was sustained, and the effort was the foundation beneath every other variable on this assessment. Effort score. A. Overall assessment. Now we can answer the central question directly. Was Genghis Khan ready to build the world's largest empire? Let the scorecard speak plainly. Context. B. He mastered the step completely. He understood empire governance partially, and partial understanding at that scale leaves gaps that history eventually finds. Value. C. The trade, the tolerance, the connectivity were real. So was the destruction, and a ready leader builds more than he erases. Informational assessment. B. The intelligence system was extraordinary. The inability to fully process what succession required at the institutional level was the gap that ultimately cost his empire its continuity. Efficacy. C. He produced the largest empire in history. He did not produce a durable one. And durability is what full readiness builds. Commitment. A. Total. Forged in genuine suffering, sustained across decades. It was the commitment of a man who understood that nothing comes without cost and paid that cost without complaint. Effort. A. Unreserved, sustained, genuine. The foundation beneath everything else he accomplished. Overall score. B. Not because Genghis Khan lacked greatness. The scale of what he accomplished makes the question of greatness almost irrelevant. The question was readiness, and the honest answer is that Genghis Khan was the most ready conqueror in history, and still carried readiness gaps in governance, succession, and institutional building that his empire could not survive. If you study leadership, stop measuring only the scale of what someone built. Start asking whether the foundation was genuinely ready to hold what was placed on top of it. If you lead people today, look carefully at the difference between personal commitment and institutional readiness, between the effort you put in and the systems you build to carry that effort forward when you are no longer in the room. They are related, but they are not the same thing. Visit the Readiness for Change Institute to learn how the Rewind History Assessment framework applies to leaders and organizations navigating the real pressure of transformation today. The goal is not to diminish what Genghis Khan accomplished. The goal is to understand what readiness looks like so that what you build does not depend entirely on you to survive. Follow the Rewind History Assessment for more conversations about leadership, behavior, and the evidence that history leaves behind. We will see you next time.